Whoops. Welcome back into Foolish Club Media. I am Steven Serda, flying solo tonight. So got a lot to discuss from tonight's game, but the Kansas City Chiefs take down the Raiders 19-17. They improve to 11-1 on the season, and they clinch a playoff spot in the AFC. But this was a hard football game to watch. This was not a fun football game for the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is, again, becoming a trend. They continue to win these close matchups and find a way to pull things off. And somehow in this game, the Raiders in the fourth quarter driving, Aiden O'Connell looks like he's getting them in field goal range, and a fluke miscommunication. The center snaps the football. Aiden O'Connell's not paying attention. Raiders get flags for illegal shift, and the football is recovered by Nick Bolton. And so the Chiefs take over, and it's a turnover, the first turnover of the day for the Kansas City Chiefs defense, and they win the football game. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. I don't really know how to react to that. And it feels like this Chiefs team, when you're like, they can't keep finding new, weird ways to win football games, they find a way to do it. And this thing, top to bottom, was as ugly as it gets. I think this was uglier than the Panthers game for the Kansas City Chiefs. But again, they're still 11-1. They clinched a playoff spot. So it's hard to complain. But if you watch that football game, you probably don't feel very good today, because it was an absolutely brutal watch and performance from the Kansas City Chiefs. They got cooked multiple times by Raiders receivers and Aiden O'Connell. Brock Bowers absolutely decimated the Chiefs secondary. Andy Reid was making very questionable calls. The Chiefs offensive line can't protect Patrick Mahomes. He ate another 5 sacks today, was under pressure all day long. It was just a brutal, brutal Black Friday for the Kansas City Chiefs, but the outcome is the same. Nothing changed. They're still 11-1. They still find a way to get it done. And it was a little bit of flukiness. Like it just happens, but somehow they continue to do it. And it really is just becoming unexplainable. Like this particular one, it's yes, Andy Reid gets these guys up. Steve Spagnuolo gets these guys up. Patrick Mahomes finds a way to get it done when it matters most. And I don't know what the hell today's game was. It was brutal. Patrick Mahomes, again, under pressure all day long in this one against the Las Vegas Raiders. And now, this isn't something that we're unfamiliar with. Max Crosby has given the Chiefs problems for years now. Like, he is somebody that just decimates them no matter who they have along the offensive line. But today kind of felt like a rock bottom moment for the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line, where it seemed early in the game, Mahomes looked sharp. He was, staying. He was actually getting some protection and was completing passes down the field and was looking clean early on. And then, similar to last week's game against the Carolina Panthers, all of a sudden the offensive line just totally fell apart. And Jawan Taylor had some rough moments. The interior still had some rough moments. And then, of course, Wanya Morris was absolutely brutal. Again, Patrick Mahomes sacked 5 times in today's contest, was under pressure all day long. And we saw him get frustrated during this game in a way that we haven't seen Patrick Mahomes get frustrated very often. Like, Mahomes was livid with Wanya Morris and how awful he was today. And now in the fourth quarter, Andy Reid finally decides, okay, emergency button, Mike Caliendo in at guard, Joe Thuney moving over to left tackle, because Wanya Morris doesn't belong on the field. And now this supposed ramp up period for DJ Humphries, who they just signed to a lucrative contract mid-season, it feels like they got to put that thing, that they got to get that thing going on the fly. They got to get DJ Humphries in for the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line, because Wanya Morris was unplayable today in a way that we saw earlier this season. Kingsley Suamataia was absolutely unplayable against the Cincinnati Bengals, and they had to pull him and put Wanya in. And Wanya's been functional at times, but he was absolutely getting decimated today. Mahomes was under pressure the back end of the game constantly. And it's not just like we talk about, and we talked about it on this week's show in BK, which happy Thanksgiving to everybody. I hope you had more fun yesterday than we had today watching the Kansas City Chiefs, but it was just it was just absolutely brutal for the Kansas City Chiefs offensive line today. And this wasn't another situation where, when you go look at the Chiefs offensive line metrics and their win rate and success rate and whatever, like if you just look at those on the surface, you think like, oh, the Chiefs offensive line is better than we think that it is. The numbers show that they are a talented group. But when you dig deeper and you're paying attention to every single game and like, how the hell are the Chiefs winning these things? You're seeing week after week after week, Mahomes is running for his life. And today, Wanya Morris had one of the worst whiffs I have ever seen, where he just got absolutely smoked and Mahomes got lit up. And it felt like that was happening the entirety of the second half. Like, you cannot have Patrick Mahomes eating 5-6 sacks a week, and the Chiefs offensive line has now given up 10 sacks in the last 2 games. It's totally unacceptable. That's why they decided to move Joe Thuney to left tackle in the fourth quarter of this one, because they didn't have another choice. Like, they simply did not have another choice. Wanya Morris did not belong on the field against the Las Vegas Raiders today. That's how absolutely brutal he was. And it totally stunted the entire offense in the second half. Like, that they were showing some signs of positivity in the first half, and Mahomes had a couple of nice plays. He had that incredible throw to DeAndre Hopkins to try to pick up a first down. Hopkins just drops it. It's just a brutal miss. He had another miss to Kelsey where they just weren't on the same page, and it should have been a touchdown. Had another deep shot to Worthy where it was just overthrown. And I think some of the miscues by Mahomes were due to the pressure that he was constantly under in this thing. And we've been talking about the defense. I'll get into all of that. I see you guys in the comments. I'll get to some of your observations about this game as well. But today felt even more so than a near loss to the Carolina Panthers. Today kind of felt like rock bottom for this Kansas City Chiefs team, even though it once again winds up a win. And I'm not totally panicking. I don't think I don't think the Chiefs are fraudulent or something like that. I still believe the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC. I still believe the Chiefs are one of the best teams in the NFL, and they continue to do this week after week because they are so talented. But eventually it's going to catch up to you, and today it seemed like they were about to drop this thing to the Raiders, and if it wasn't for a fluke play at the end of the game by their center, I don't know what the hell happened there, then we'd be talking about this game as another blown holiday loss to the Las Vegas Raiders. Like, is this what we can expect when they play on Christmas Day as well? Because the Chiefs really seem to not be interested in playing these holiday games, but they play them every single year now, whether they want to or not. But it was just a brutal, brutal game. And I got even more frustrated with the offense in the fourth quarter because the defense, for once, actually, after getting cooked for a lot of the day by Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers, had a big first half, and Joshua Williams finally gets the nod over Najee Johnson because Najee Johnson's getting cooked in the first half of this one. Like, the defense actually did step up in the fourth quarter. The defense had back-to-back stops in the fourth quarter, and the offense could not do anything when they got back out onto the field. The offense could not run any clock, and so they wind up having to go 3 and out, and Andy Reid calls a timeout ahead of the 2-minute warning for some reason because they were thinking about going for it on 4th and 2, I guess. And then they decide to punt it. So they give the Raiders a free timeout and stop the clock. And then Aiden O'Connell immediately gets them down the field and into field goal range. And it takes a fluke play like this for the Kansas City Chiefs to be sitting here at 11-1. Like this, I don't want to be drastic here, but it does feel like outside of maybe the Raiders blowing you out or something, this was about as rock bottom of a performance as you could expect from this team. And now, hopefully, the only place to go from here is up. I hope. I have to imagine DJ Humphries is going to be getting into the mix for the Chiefs here a lot sooner than we initially expected because they don't have time to ramp him up slowly. They got to get him in football games right now because it has been that brutal for that offensive line. But I do want to focus on some positives because there was a couple of positives, even though everybody always accuses me of just focusing on the negative parts. But all I'm trying to do is actually like analyze and understand the inner workings of what's happening with the Kansas City Chiefs. And a positive from today's game, from their 19-17 win over the Las Vegas Raiders, Isaiah Pacheco returns. And for whatever reason, similar to the Carolina Panthers, Raiders have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. Everybody runs on the Raiders. Like, you should find success on the ground against the Las Vegas Raiders. So, okay, you get Pacheco back. Let him get some carries and get in the mix. Then you got Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt's been your workhorse since coming into your backfield and getting opportunities, and you can lean on him no matter what, right? So it's like, why did Andy Reid once again make this thing more difficult than he needed to? He refused to run the football. He kept dropping Mahomes back today, even though Mahomes was getting absolutely killed when he dropped back. Isaiah Pacheco finishes the game with 7 carries for 44 yards, and he had a nice 34-yard run. Great. Love seeing that. You haven't seen that from a Chiefs running back in a while. They haven't had that explosive element. So wonderful. Great first game back for Isaiah Pacheco. But then Kareem Hunt only has 7 carries for 15 yards. And Patrick Mahomes has a couple of rushes. So the Chiefs just opt, hey, we're just going to go out here and sling it today against a Raiders defense that has actually been much better against the pass this season, but they've been absolutely torched on the ground. This is the second consecutive game where the offensive game plan was, instead of attacking the weakness of the opposing team, we're going to take the difficult road and do what they're best at and go toe-to-toe with them. And this team just needs an easy win, Andy. The fans just need an easy win. Like, we're going through this week after week after week. And I'm 35 years old. I don't know if my heart can take it anymore. It's just too much. Like, you can tell too, but just by the chemistry and the energy of this football team, like, they desperately just need an easy win. Like, can we just do what's easy? Can we just attack the legitimate weakness of a defense for once instead of taking the difficult path? And for some reason, the Chiefs offensively continue to do that over and over again. But it was very nice to see Isaiah Pacheco back in the mix and get the opportunities. And I fully expect that he's going to be incorporated even more moving forward. And it was very nice to see him rip off that 34-yard run, because we have been missing that element of the Chiefs rushing attack all season since he went down in week 2. So very nice return for Isaiah Pacheco. Travis Kelce did actually get involved today, so that was nice to see. Had a quiet second half, but he was heavily involved in the first half. I think he went into the half with 5 or 6 catches and finishes the day, seven receptions for 68 yards. DeAndre Hopkins winds up with a nice day, but I mentioned that third down drop. Also had another near touchdown. It was an incredible one-handed catch, but Mahomes just put it too deep in the end zone, and there was no way Hopkins could get his feet in bounds. So he could have wound up with an even better day. So they did. Maybe that was the game plan. Maybe that was the get experience against, we know they're a decent Raiders secondary, but this is like our trial and error playoff preparation. So instead of just expanding on the run game and doing what we can to just dominate them there and get an easy win on Black Friday, we're going to lean in the passing game and make it difficult. But they got Kelce involved. They got Hopkins involved. Justin Watson even caught a touchdown today. I guess that was nice to see, although he did have a drop early in the game that bothered me once again. Noah Gray almost had a touchdown too, but Mahomes overthrew him, but he still finishes with 4 catches for 58 yards. So another nice outing for Noah Gray. Xavier Worthy, 5 receptions, 54 yards. Like, overall, aside from the fact that you can't pass block to save your life and protect your superstar quarterback, really wasn't that bad of a day for the Chiefs passing game. They chose to lean into it. They chose to attack the Raiders that way. And it could have been a lot worse, honestly, if there was turnovers, if this was a team that was any more talented than the Las Vegas Raiders. Like, I think the Chiefs shot themselves in the foot enough today that they probably wouldn't have come away with a win. Now, I don't have a lot of time here flying solo, and as you can tell, I'm struggling to keep moving here, as I'm a little under the weather here on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. But I do appreciate all you guys checking us out on Foolish Club Media. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube page, we'd really appreciate it. We're going over there. We're doing tons of stuff, so highly encourage you to go check that out if you have not done so. Yeah, again, I'll get to some of your comments at the end of the show before I get out of here. But turning the page to the Chiefs defense. Now, there was some glimmer of hope today, at least for me, on the defensive side of the ball. The offensive line is a total disaster for the Kansas City Chiefs. But again, the passing game wasn't totally awful today. Like there was some positives to focus on from the Chiefs passing game, but the defense had its ups and downs as it has over the last several weeks, but it did show some signs of life, and that's encouraging. I already mentioned they had the 2 fourth quarter stops, which were huge at a critical moment in the game, and that was coming off of the back of a Trey Tucker 58-yard touchdown where they sent him in motion. It was a nice play design. He gets one-on-one coverage with Justin Reed off the line of scrimmage and just absolutely smokes him. Like it was actually just a really nice play design by the Raiders. But after that, the Chiefs defense really settled down. And a big part of, I think, what helped today was having Charles Omenihu back in the mix. We saw him come in early in the game. And he immediately makes an impact. And then at a halftime, he has a fourth down stop and had multiple pressures today, was just kind of flying around and had multiple moments where you could tell he was impacting things for the Chiefs defensive line and then opening things up for Chris Jones. Whereas we've seen recently the Chiefs are struggling so much to get pressure because there's just nobody else that can win one-on-one. And so that teams can just lean into, hey, we just got to put 3 guys on Chris Jones at all times and make sure that Chris Jones doesn't totally annihilate us. And you saw today what a difference a player like Charles Omenihu can make for this defensive line, because now George can win, Mike Dana can win, Tershawn Wharton can win, but they don't win exactly the same way that Charles Omenihu does. Like Charles Omenihu is a legitimate matchup problem who you can slide along that defensive line. He can play inside, he can play outside. He's a powerful edge rusher who just can complement a player like Chris Jones really well. And teams have to factor him into that now. Whereas before it was like, okay, we think we can take George one-on-one. We think we can take Mike Dana one-on-one. We know we can take FAU and Tershawn Wharton one-on-one. And then it's like, put everybody else on Chris Jones, and the Chiefs can't generate a pass rush without a blitz. And then we'll dial things up to combat the blitz. And if they don't have Trent McDuffie doing it, they haven't been as successful with the blitzes. We saw some multiple failed blitzes from the Chiefs again today. Justin Reed had a couple where he just could not get in. He just doesn't have the speed to get to the quarterback the way a player like Trent McDuffie does. But the Chiefs haven't been able to do that in the secondary, in part because they haven't really been able to rotate guys that way because they're shorthanded back there and because they aren't generating enough pass rush. So Charles Omenihu, welcome back. Thank you. We desperately needed your addition to the defense today, and it wound up really mattering for the Kansas City Chiefs. Chris Jones finishes the game, 2 sacks, had multiple other plays. He was putting pressure on Aiden O'Connell because the Raiders couldn't just lean in on trying to slow him down. They had to account for Charles Omenihu. George Karlaftis has a nice day. Like it was just a nice, solid day for the Chiefs defensive line. Now, secondary is another story, and the issues continue with the Chiefs secondary today to the point where Najee Johnson is benched in the first half. We see Keith Taylor come in after Johnson gets smoked by Jacoby Myers early in the game, and then Myers immediately follows it up by burning Trent McDuffie. But that was honestly that was kind of a bad throw by Aiden O'Connell, and Jacoby Myers just made an incredible adjustment, and McDuffie just didn't really have much he could do about it. So I'm not going to blame McDuffie too much on that, but Najee Johnson got absolutely smoked by him on the previous play for a huge gain. And then Chiefs put Keith Taylor in the game. And then after that, it was Joshua Williams the rest of the way. Now, we talked about this on Show and BK a lot, and we've been talking about it on Foolish Club Media. I don't know what Joshua Williams has done. I know that early in the season, he had some bad moments, and maybe he was just kind of like in this Steve Spagnuolo doghouse where he'd only been playing special teams and they're trotting Najee Johnson out, even though we see week after week, like Najee Johnson probably just doesn't have it. Or Chamari Connor, who does some nice things. I still like Chamari Connor as a player, but Chamari Connor is a straight up liability in coverage. Chamari Connor cannot win one-on-one in coverage against anybody right now. And he got cooked by Brock Bowers on that long touchdown today. But as far as the cornerbacks go, like, I didn't think Joshua Williams was terrible today. Like, we've seen good play from Joshua Williams in the past. He's certainly a flawed player. He's going to give up big plays. He's going to have bad positioning sometimes. But that's every corner in the league outside of the elite top end guys. Like, they're all going to have those moments. That's why it's such a difficult position to play. And I would rather see Joshua Williams, who has the physical traits to at least go toe-to-toe with some NFL caliber wide receivers in a way that I think Najee Johnson doesn't. Like, I want to see Joshua Williams out there and get the opportunities because we've seen the promise from him in the past. And for whatever reason, the Chiefs were refusing to do it. And it finally got bad enough today that they were like, all right, we're making the switch. And they finally did that. Now, maybe they play Najee Johnson, or they move Trent McDuffie back to the slot, and it's Najee Johnson and Joshua Williams at the outside corners. And I think that could honestly be a good thing for the defense because Trent McDuffie is so versatile out of the slot. He is such a playmaker and game changer for the Chiefs at that position. But Steve Spagnuolo's got to make some adjustments because they just don't have the guys right now. They don't have the athleticism in the secondary. Their safeties are slow out there. They got a bunch of line of scrimmage safeties who are not good in coverage, and teams are exploiting that week after week after week now. So it was nice to see Joshua Williams get back in the mix for the Kansas City Chiefs on defense, but they still have some things to figure out there. It certainly wasn't perfect, but it wasn't anywhere near as bad as the Chiefs offensive line play. So that's my biggest takeaway for the Chiefs Black Friday win. Again, they improved to 11-1 on the season. They clinch a playoff spot in the AFC. So there's reason to celebrate, but it did take a fluke play at the end of the game for the Chiefs to wind up escaping today with a win and getting their 11th win on the season. But again, this team, whether it's a blocked field goal or the center for the Las Vegas Raiders can't hear the snap and snaps it too early, and it's just a fluke like that. Whatever, they keep finding ways to win. It's stressful. It's not really a lot of fun, but they keep finding ways to get it done. So I'm not sure where they go from here, but I hope this is as bad as it gets. Now, maybe the rock bottom is going to take like a legitimate blowout loss to one of these teams here on the schedule coming up. They got the Chargers on Sunday Night Football next week, so that's going to be a massive game. The Chargers still vying for a playoff spot, number 2, and competing with the Denver Broncos for the second spot in the AFC West. Like, the Chargers are a good football team. They're a talented football team, but I still think the Chiefs can win that game. But this Chargers team does look very different from the Chargers team that they played early in the season. So that's going to be a tough contest. Cleveland Browns, I don't think they're particularly good, but they're fun with Jameis Winston. And the way this secondary is playing right now, they could give them some problems. The Houston Texans are totally falling apart right now. I have no faith that Texans should really give the Chiefs any problems. But then you have that game on Christmas Day against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then you end the season against the Denver Broncos, and the Broncos could be competing for a playoff spot. So that could wind up being a massive matchup in Week 18 for the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, I don't think that they should lose a game the rest of the way. I do think they are probably going to lose a game the rest of the way because we get these kinds of performances from the Kansas City Chiefs, and we've just seen this over and over and over again from them. Like, it's nothing new to Chiefs fans, but it is very frustrating. It is very upsetting. Like, can we just get an easy win for once? Okay. Comments time. The very first comment is fire Andy Reid and Beach. I'm not going to put any time into that. That's ridiculous. From Saw, Wanye looks like a guard and Felix is still a bust. That was brutal. Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say, like, is Wanye Morris even being put in a fair situation this season? Because coming into the year, they were like, this second round rookie, Kingsley Suamataia, easily beat you in training camp. Like, easily took the job. And then he was such a disaster that he can't even get on the field now. But Wanye was always supposed to be kind of a right tackle, swing tackle project player. And because the Chiefs have a lack of options, they were like, hey, we need you to be the starting left tackle now. Like, that's not really what he did. Like, that's not really what he was drafted for. So I don't think that he's necessarily been put in the best situation, but he looked like one of the worst starting left tackles in the NFL today. Like, it was absolutely that brutal. And Corey, this team is going to kill me. Today was rough. I don't know about you guys, but I had a few drinks after Thanksgiving dinner last night. Stayed up kind of late, and I was dragging a little bit today. So on top of that, and then this kind of win where we always have to take it down to the very last second, can we just get a 14-point victory for once in our life? I would love that. from BS. We cannot beat the Chargers, Broncos, or Steelers right now. I mean, I still think they can beat the Chargers. The Chargers are good. Like Justin Herbert is playing out of his mind right now. And I know J.K. Dobbins is hurt right now, so he might not be available for their Sunday Night Football contest next week, but that's something we'll monitor here at Foolish Club Media. But the Chargers haven't beat anyone good. Like the Broncos can give you legitimate problems because the Broncos pass rush and defense is very, very good. And the Broncos are interesting. I still think the Chargers are a better football team, but I don't think the Chargers have actually done anything nearly as impressive as what the Chiefs have done this season in their total wins and in the big wins that they have had. The Chargers don't have anything like that. And the Steelers are so up and down. I mean, the Steelers just lost to the Browns. Like that's the calling card of any Mike Tomlin coach team is somehow get to a positive record and find ways to win games on defense because your offense isn't always functional, and then you drop games that you have no business dropping. From Carlos, Joshua Williams was a revelation in this game. The secondary played significantly better with him, but we can't keep relying on safeties to cover wideouts. I totally agree, Carlos. I do think Joshua Williams was good. Like Joshua Williams, when he came in for Najee Johnson after he got smoked in the first quarter, like Joshua Williams wasn't bad. Like Joshua Williams wasn't out there getting toasted by Raiders wide receivers, by Jacoby Myers. And Jacoby Myers is a very nice player, but Brock Bowers is a superstar. But outside of those guys, you got no business getting cooked by the likes of Trey Tucker. Like, this secondary has issues right now, and it's not just the corners, but Joshua Williams was at least a positive sign of the Chiefs finding a personnel grouping that can work for them, at least for the time being. And maybe they can find something more with that moving forward, because the biggest issue right now is Jamari Conner is not meant to be a slot corner. Like he simply isn't. Jamari Conner is like a box safety who comes down like a missile. Like he's got one speed and he's not always the greatest tackler and he doesn't shift well. He's not good at trying to run routes with a wide receiver and he just gets beat in coverage way too often. Same for Justin Reed, same for Brian Cook. Like the Chiefs safeties just are not good enough right now. They are not good enough in coverage, not a single one of them, to do what the Chiefs need to do. And they've got to get that help up front. They've got to get the pass rush going more to find a way to try to make some improvements there. Our guy, Elliott, both sides are having to compensate too much. Secondary has to compensate for lack of speed at corners so they can get the pressure they need. Offense has to compensate for the offensive line, and he can't call. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like we're seeing right now, despite the fact that they continue to win football games, and you know there's a very real scenario and a different timeline where the Kansas City Chiefs drop back-to-back games to the 3-win Carolina Panthers and the 2-win Las Vegas Raiders, and they were very close to doing both of those things. But the problem right now, and I think part of this, and some of this is why I'm like, they lean into the more difficult path instead of taking the easy way out. And maybe some of that is just, this is how we season ourselves for playoff football. Like we have to overcome the circumstances that we're in. And then when we get into the playoffs, we can start attacking those weaknesses in a way that we refuse to in the regular season. But I think that's why we're seeing that. Right now, they know this stretch of games is the time to tinker. And this was really the stretch of games where they needed to do that. And so they were tinkering. They were trying things out. They were going for it, and they were trying to see what happened. Now, they're still trying to win football games. They don't want to lose football games. But that's also why these last two games have been so close against bad football teams, because the Chiefs just chose to throw on the passing game and put the offensive lineman out on an island and say, hey, go get it figured out. Take your lumps. And they failed the test, and they had to change things today. But we're just seeing that trickle down to every level, whether it's on defense or offense. It's happening on both sides of the ball for the Kansas City Chiefs right now. But again, they improved to 11-1. So got to be positive. It's still a holiday weekend. We still got a couple of days here. And now it is kind of nice. We got the Chiefs out of the way. On Sunday, you can just kick back, watch Red Zone, eat some food, maybe hang out with some family, hopefully you got more time coming off or coming up with the holidays and everything. So thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back later on this week with normal lineup of shows, Beach Season, Brian's World, Show and BK, The Daily Fix, everything right here at Foolish Club Media. So make sure you head over to our YouTube page and subscribe there. We're really growing. We appreciate all the support. And please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review on Apple and Spotify, and check out everything that we're doing on the podcast page. I will be back next week. Rocky will be back next week. We will have a live post-game show, Sunday Night Football edition, as the Kansas City Chiefs look to win their 12th game of the season against the Los Angeles Chargers. We'll talk to you guys then.